In a struggling town, children suddenly start disappearing without a trace. No signs of forced entry or witnesses in the homes, just empty beds when the sun comes up. They call him the Tall Man, a shadow that takes children in the night. But when one mother's child is taken, she refuses to sit back and watch. She gives chase through the dark night and through the silence, through a truth no one dares to face. Because this isn't about a monster, it's about something far more disturbing, something hiding in plain sight. Long before the truth of this story begins to unravel, the small town is continually haunted by a darkness that no one can explain. For months, children have been vanishing without a trace, and the grief hanging over every household is almost unbearable. The police have nothing, no suspects, no leads. The only thing witnesses consistently describe is the figure responsible, impossibly tall figure, being the only thing they can remember. The townspeople have given him a name. They call him the Tall Man. Among the town's residents is Julia Denning, a doctor who built her life around helping others. She and her husband ran a free clinic together, caring for the poor and delivering babies for women who had nowhere else to turn. But her husband is gone now, taken by illness, and dead. Julia carries on alone. To keep herself going, she brought in Christine, the daughter of a neighbor, to work as her assistant. One afternoon, Julia sits at a local cafe with police officers, trying to piece together what little they know about the disappearances. Through the window, she spots a woman hovering outside, a mother who recently lost her son to whoever this tall man is. Julia steps out to offer her coffee, but the woman says nothing and walks away. Whatever she is carrying it alone. That evening, Julia comes home, spends time with her son, gets him fed and tucked into bed. She and Christine share some wine afterward, unwinding from the day. A little lightheaded, Julia wanders to the library and settles into a book, only to drift off in the chair. She wakes to a sound coming from downstairs. The radio is on, but she never touched it. Something is wrong. She rushes down to find Christine bound and trembling, pointing frantically toward the upper floor. Julia takes the stairs two at a time. Her son's room is empty. The tall man had been inside her house. She sprints outside in time to see a vehicle tearing down the road. She runs after it, somehow catches the door and holds on, until the speed becomes too much and she's thrown off. The vehicle stops. The tall man steps out. Julia crawls beneath the car, steadying her breathing, waiting. When the moment comes, she slips into the passenger seat. Her son is there. She reaches for him, and a large dog launches itself at her, knocking her flat. She finds a brick. She uses it. But before she can get to her son, the tall man is on her, and everything goes dark. She wakes up tied up, the same dog snarling inches from her face. She works the ropes against an iron bucket until they give up, shatters a window, and throws herself back into the fight. She manages to force the vehicle off course. It flips, but the crash takes her under again, and when she comes to, her son is gone. This time, though, someone saw it all. A woman named Jenny witnessed everything. Julia follows footprints into the forest until they simply stop, as if the ground swallowed them. She collapses on a road somewhere between the trees and the town. A passing car brings her back to the cafe, where the whole village seems to have gathered. One look at her, and the room falls silent with concern. The police tell her to rest and set up a room for her. Inside that room, Julia finds a wall papered with photographs, missing children, face after face. And there, among them, is her son, David. Meanwhile, a local man named Johnson had spotted Julia staring at those photos and immediately went to tell the others. Something about the way he reacted felt off. It raises a question Julia doesn't want to sit with. How many people in this town actually want these children found? A police officer notices a door left open and goes to investigate. Julia is already gone. A search fans out across the village, but no one thinks to check inside a parked police vehicle. Julia slips out when the officer steps away and follows her instincts to an old abandoned factory. Inside, she finds David. She moves toward him, and the tall man strikes her from behind. But when the tall man's identity is finally uncovered, nothing about it makes sense. It is a woman, the same woman Julia saw lingering outside the cafe days ago. And David, her son, wraps his arms around this woman and calls her mom. Tied to a chair, Julia learns the truth. This woman is David's biological mother. She had spent years trying to find him, to make him remember who she really was. It was Jenny who first took David away and handed him to Julia. Weeks earlier, Johnson had discovered David was living with Julia and told the entire village. At first, people dismissed it. Julia was a doctor, a respected woman, but doubt has a way of spreading, and soon the town turned against her. When Julia tried to run, they gave chase. The biological mother demanded to know what happened to the other missing children. Julia's answer, that she gave them to the tall man, only deepened the confusion, because when pressed on who the tall man actually was, she had nothing coherent to offer. The woman, patience gone, slapped her hard. The impact rattled the ropes loose. David had drifted closer. Johnson leaned in and told Julia to look her son in the eye and admit she was not his real mother. In that distracted moment, Julia threw herself forward, knocked the woman down, and broke free. David hid in a corner. Jenny found him. The three of them got into a car and drove home. The moment they arrived, Julia handed David to Christine and told her to run. The villagers would not be far behind. She told Jenny the same thing, but Jenny had already told her father everything, and the police had been called. By morning, Christine takes her own life. Julia is apprehended, and as soon as she steps outside, the crowd is waiting. Stones, shouting, rage from parents who still did not know where their children were. Even on the ride to the station, people attacked the police vehicle. Through all of it, and through the interrogation that followed, Julia said almost nothing useful. She kept coming back to one thought, that these children came from lives filled with loneliness and pain, and that someone had to do something about it. The police formed their own theory. Julia had been shattered by her husband's death and by her inability to have children of her own. The tall man, they decided, was something she had invented, a delusion. Julia did nothing to correct them. She confirmed it. There was no tall man, she said. She had acted alone. Hoping to crack her open, the police brought in David's biological mother, Mrs. Johnson, one grieving mother facing another. The strategy worked. Seeing that woman across from her, Julia finally broke. She explained that she had sent the children to cities, to families who could give them more than their current lives ever would. She wanted them to have a future. She had one request. She wanted to meet the tall man. Julia went inside, picked David up, and carried him toward the basement, suggesting that was where the tall man could be found. She came back out and told Mrs. Johnson that her message had been passed along. Mrs. Johnson exhaled slowly, got into her car, and drove away into the night. Julia lay down on the couch, too tired to do anything else. The walls of her home held photographs of her and her husband, images from years of work with orphaned children all over the country. When the police arrived, she did not fight it. Christine, being led away, said quietly that she had only ever wanted something better for the children than the lives they were born into. That night, Jenny flees to a wooden shack on the edge of town. A tall figure emerged from the darkness and put her in a car. Julia had lied to the police. The tall man was real, and he was still out there. The next day brought the final revelation when Jenny is abducted from her abusive family by the tall man and placed with a wealthy family. And for the first time, the tall man's face was finally seen clearly. It was Julia's husband. He never died. They had planned it together from the beginning. Julia staged his death. While she maintained her life in the village, he worked in the background, and together they moved children, quietly, carefully, out of the town and into better lives in the cities. Julia never told anyone he was alive, and because she stayed silent, she was sentenced to life in prison. Years pass, and we see that Jenny has adjusted wonderfully to her new life, and thanks to the love and support from her new family where the tall man placed her, she finally heals from the trauma of her abusive family growing up and is now able to speak properly. One day, while walking close to a school, Jenny sees David. He is with a new family now, laughing, healthy, clearly loved. Watching him, she feels something loosen in her chest, and her eyes fill, but she does not go to him. This encounter touches her in a way that she can't fully comprehend, but it makes her question her choices, wondering if she did the right thing by abandoning her former family without a care to live this new, better life. In the end, Julia was the one taking the children and giving them to the tall man, who was her husband, the husband who she had earlier faked his death, something they both planned. Julia's husband faked his death and became the mysterious figure people called the tall man, so that he could physically take abused children away from their bad families. Julia would identify which children needed help, and her husband would collect them. The whole town thought a dangerous stranger was abducting their kids, but it was actually an organized operation run by Julia and her husband. Julia had been raising David, genuinely caring for him, but David actually had a biological mother, Mrs. Johnson, who had been desperately searching for him. When David reunited with his biological mother, he remembered her and called her Mom, which was devastating for Julia. On the other hand, Jenny was also revealed to be one of the children abducted by the tall man. At first, it was thought that she was a victim, but this turned out to be a good thing for her because by taking her away from her abusive mother and placing her in a stable family, the one mute girl could finally heal from her childhood trauma and learn to speak again. That's it for today's story. But before you go, I gotta ask, if you grew up in Cold Rock, would you have wanted someone like Julia to save you, even without your knowledge? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more twisted stories like this.